Hello and welcome back to Slapshot Sweethearts. I'm Shan, and I'm sure that you noticed my co-host is not with us today. She is traveling back to the East Coast as we have all been waiting for, so we are excited to have her back in the same time zone. But we are joined by Jean-Luc Grand-Pierre, who is a former NHLer and current Fox Sports analyst for the Columbus Blue Jackets. How are you, Jean-Luc?
I'm good, and you?
Good. Looking forward to the Blue Jackets game today, so excited to see them hopefully get back another W against the Stars.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, they haven't been able to get a season sweep yet as far as like even a two-game series, so that'd be nice to see them win that one today.
Yeah, that would be great. So we can just dive right in. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself to kick it off?
Yeah, I guess was born and raised in Montreal, Canada, and grew up obviously loving hockey and playing the sport along with soccer as a young kid, and kind of decided to pursue hockey at some point, when I was a teenager, when hockey becomes a little bit more of a, more than a 6-month sport, and you expand it to 8 months at the time. So I had to make some choices and decide that the hockey was really a sport that I was more passionate about. And was lucky enough to, play, back home and then make it to juniors, you know, was drafted in the NHL by the St. Louis Blues. And yeah, I got to live the dream of playing professional hockey and, starting, really building your resume, I guess, from the American Hockey League to the NHL, and then continue my career in Europe post lockout. So that's a decision that I decided to make is, the move to Europe, and then I was lucky enough to play 7 or so seasons over there, and yeah, I really had a blast. And now I'm retired, still living in Columbus, and working along with the Blue Jackets and Fox Sport on description of the games, along with Jeff Rimmer, Jody Shelley, and Ryan Giesenschlag. So I'm part of the game coverage, locally here for the Blue Jackets, and really enjoying it as well. So it's been great. Still around hockey.
Yeah, that's incredible. So in terms of, how you got to the NHL, how did your lead up to there, tell us about draft night, tell us about, your junior career, how you got to that big night.
So junior career was it was definitely an up and down affair. I guess my draft year I got two pretty serious injuries during my draft year, so I didn't get to play all the games, and so I slipped a little bit. I was originally early season I was ranked like third round, and I went to the draft, and I had to wait till the second round to hear my name being called. So I wasn't really happy about that. That's always a it's your dream. You see all your buddies getting drafted, and then you're still sitting there. So yes, I did get drafted, but I had to wait quite a long time. And for me, it was kind of like an internal motivation as well. Once I signed my first professional contract to really prove myself and being able to make it to the big league. So it took about a year and a half before I got my first call up, and obviously I became like regular NHLer once I got traded from Buffalo to the Columbus Blue Jackets. But loved every minute in the Buffalo organization I spent. It was a great organization, great city, and yeah, I feel bad for these fans right now because obviously the team's been struggling over the last few years, and they definitely deserve a more competitive team. Let's call it.
Yeah, I mean, they should be competitive the way the roster is built up. But I mean, as an East Division fan, I don't know what's going on in Buffalo. It's frustrating to see, I'm sure, for those Buffalo fans. But in terms of the Blue Jackets right now, I mean, they are doing all right, I think. I mean, like you said, they don't have any season sweeps yet, which is a little frustrating to see. But how do you think they're going to go into the trade deadline?
I don't know. It's funny. I was talking to Jarmo Kekalainen, the general manager, yesterday, and we kind of ran out of time to ask him the question. But yeah, I don't know at what time in the season, if you keep being a 500 team, you decide to like start thinking about next season instead of making a real push for the playoffs. So it's a fine line, and I think every organization approaches it, a different way. But for the Blue Jackets right now, they have, Nick Foligno and David Savard are going to be unrestricted free agent. Michael Del Zotto as well. And, those are some guys that, you could get a pretty decent return for on the trade market as, real contenders are really looking for missing pieces in their lineup. So we'll see how it goes. I know they're desperate for, a number one center right now here to really get the Patrick Laine going. But yeah, it's going to be, I think basically the guys in the room are going to decide which way they're going to force the hand of the GM. Like, hey, are we adding for this year? Or are we thinking about the future? So we shall see. But yeah, it's been a challenging year for this team, that's for sure. And it's not like they're in the bottom of the league, but they're definitely up to the standard we've been used over the last few years. So.
Yeah, and it's harder to tell just because of the way that the divisions are stacked up. But, it's incredibly different compared to other years with you're only playing. I mean, I'm sure they've played the Stars, like we said, 4 or 5 times now, even with the COVID shutdowns and everything. So, I mean, how do you feel about the Blue Jackets in their division? Do you think that the season would be shaking out differently if they were playing different teams, or do you think it would probably be the same?
I don't think it would be any different because I look at the Metropolitan, which is basically the East. A lot of the teams are in the East right now. So you look at Washington, and the Islanders are still doing really good, and then Tampa Bay would still be in our division, and actually no, Tampa Bay would not be. But if you look at the East is just as strong, in my opinion. I think the Western division is really the weak one, I think, if you look at all three, including the Canadian one. So I think it would still be the same thing. Yes, of course, you have some rivalries that you're a little more used to, like the Pittsburgh, the Washington. But it would be, I think the results would be the same. So I'm not blaming it on, the COVID realignment or anything like that. It's just really within that room they need to figure things out, a little faster, because now we're at the halfway point of the season and they've just not been consistent. And the Blue Jackets historically is a team that's hard to play against, every single night. And right now we were seeing it. Some periods they're here and some periods they're not. So it's hard to win that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know John Tortorella is historically a very direct coach when it comes to, lack of consistency and things like that. And he was completely direct with Patrick Laine when he was not, bringing that consistency after the trade. What's your initial take on, how John Tortorella is handling that situation following the trade?
Well, I think he's been really good. He's trying to set the standard. And, it's funny. I compare John Tortorella coaching style to anybody's golf game. So I don't know if you're a golfer, but sometimes he gets crap. Yeah. So sometimes he gets crap because he doesn't put certain players in certain situation. And to me, I'm just looking at it as, I'm on the 18th hole and I have to pick, am I going for the home run with my driver? Or am I going to play it safe and, tee off with my 3-wood? And a lot of time people will say, well, you got to go for a driver, right? So it's, as a coach, you make the decision and you live with it. And sometimes it's the right decision, sometimes it's not. But I think he gets more bad press than any other coach just because of his previous relationship with the media. I think that's really what's hurting him more than anything else. Because I think a lot of the things, he talked about a couple of games ago, we were talking about Patrick Laine being benched, and he really wasn't being benched. I mean, he was playing. It was just very sporadic because of the situation. They needed defensive players on the ice, and they were trying to, hold on to this lead. They were up 4-1 against the Florida Panthers, and then the Panthers kind of took over the game. And at this point, you're trying to defend. You're not thinking about taking chance offensively. And Patrick Laine, right now, at this point, is not a great defender yet. So that's his decision, and I see it, but a lot of fans don't.
Yeah, that completely makes sense. And you brought up the Panthers, which is a good segue into, kind of the surprises for the Central Division right now. In our initial start, which I'm sure I'm not alone, did not expect the Panthers to be good. I mean, they were not particularly good last year. The roster didn't change that significantly. What are your initial takes on, the big unexpected things that are going on in the Central Division right now?
I'm stunned. I'm just like everyone else. I saw for me, my top three in that division this year was going to be Tampa, Carolina second, and then third, I was thinking maybe Dallas, but I did not see Florida being in there, and it's a different team. I think Bill Zito, who was he's a first year GM there, made some incredible moves as far as adding speed to their lineup, and then also you have to give credit to their coaching staff because they're I wouldn't say they're a more defensive system than they were last season, but they've definitely made some great adjustment on the backside. And this Mackenzie Regard that's on their first pair there, he's really opened my eyes. Didn't know much about him until this season, but he really sticks out as a key piece for their defense. So hopefully, I don't know if he's signed for a long-term deal or not, but he's definitely a key piece of their defense, and he's been making a big, big difference on their blue line. So overall, I think, yes, it's a surprise for everyone. Nobody saw it, but it just shows you how fast things can change in the NHL with just adding the right pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we recorded yesterday with another show, and we were talking about how the East is changing every day. Those top four are just shifting up and down and up and down. So in terms of who you see in those top four slots, now that we're halfway through the season for the Central Division, do you have, a top four that you're confident in, or is it still a question mark?
It's still a question mark because there are some teams that and that's the funny thing, right? Earlier in the season, people were like, "Oh, Chicago's rebuilding. They're not even going to be close. They're borderline a lottery team." Right. And then all of a sudden, hey, look at them. They're hanging in there. So it's tough. I know Carolina, Tampa, and right now Florida's proving they're going to be the real thing. So it's going to be a big battle for that fourth spot, which, obviously Dallas. I think Dallas, the Blue Jackets, and Chicago are the three teams that are really going to compete for that fourth spot. But the 1, 2, 3 to me is pretty much set right now. So no surprises there.
Right. And in terms of what do you think the Blue Jackets now, with that fourth slot really up in the air, do you think they should be buying, selling, pushing for that slot, in your opinion, pushing for that slot, or just trying to figure out what they should be doing with all those free agents going into the off season, or what?
Well, for me, I think it's you have to make sure you can, or you sign them before the season's over, or at that point you might as well trade them because it's it's hard to lose guys to free agency, and the Columbus Blue Jackets are very well aware. They've seen it over the last few years for nothing when free agency opens up. So if you can't sign these guys to extension, you might as well get something in return for them because it's just, you never know what can happen in the playoffs, but you have to play the odds and the probability and say, okay, let's be smart about it. If you're seed fourth and you're playing Tampa, it's like, what are our odds? We would have to add a whole lot more than we have right now. And, you don't want to go into a playoff run and adding a bunch of pieces to make a push and then you don't make it because now you look like a fool. So yeah, I guess it's above my pay grade, so I don't know what I would do, but they're in a really tight situation here, so we shall see.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like I was saying when we were talking yesterday about the East, we were referencing the Blackhawks because it was, they're hanging in there, but is it really worth their time to, sell and try to, make a run with what they have? Because they're just I don't think they're, good enough to make a run, but they're hanging in there in the Central Division. That doesn't mean that they're going to, if they're able to get past those first two play-in rounds in the division, in the playoffs, once they play other teams, doesn't make a difference. And I think that's pretty interesting once you look at the playoff setup and, you play your first two in the division, and then the next one you play out of your division. That'll be the first time that X team plays, not the other seven that they've been playing all season. Do you think that the Central teams that you have confident in your top three are going to hold their own against the other divisions, knowing that the Central Division is the weaker of the other three divisions? Or do you think there's going to be some issues?
I think, as weird as the Central is right now, the top three, right? So you look at the bottom and, I think Detroit, Nashville, I don't see them make any kind of run. Detroit is out for sure. Nashville, I don't see them getting hot. But if you look at the top three and you look at Carolina, Tampa, and Florida, I mean, if they're not in the same conference, I think two of those three teams can easily make it to the Stanley Cup Finals. So it's all going to be about whoever wins it to be healthy enough, because they're going to have to grind through two incredible teams no matter how. And, once you get, I don't know exactly how the setup's going to come, but from the other divisions, I would say, Winnipeg is my favorite in the North Division. I think Toronto's good, but Winnipeg is a scary team if they really get going. Out of the East, it's going to be tricky. I don't know if it's going to be Boston. It could be Washington. Who knows who's going to come out? Philadelphia's playing pretty well as well. And then the West, I think it's going to be Vegas, hands down. So it's going to be really, really interesting, but I would not count the Central Division out whatsoever, because I think probably probably three of the top five teams in the league are literally in the Central right now, if you look at the way Carolina, Florida, and Tampa Bay's playing. So it's gonna be interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah, it is. You took my next question, because I was going to say, who would you take from each division in the Final Four? But thank you for hopping on with us. That is all I have. What would you tell everyone that's listening where they can find you on social media?
Oh boy, what am I? I'm not a big social media guy, but I'm at JLGP34 on Instagram and on Twitter. So yeah, at JLGP34.
Perfect. And thank you again for hopping on. Good luck to the Blue Jackets today against the Stars. We will be rooting for them. And if you are listening, please check out Slapshot Sweethearts on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you get your podcast information. And we will see you next time. Thank you.